Welcome to the first entry in a series of rants entitled The Downfall of Gaming Journalism, and as the title suggests, these will be dedicated to the vanishing credibility of what is a vanishing industry, video game journalism. When I first fired the opening salvos in my now 4-year crusade against the depraved and incestuous coven of self-interest that is modern gaming journalism all the way back in 2009, I was in fact one of the few voices in video reviewing who are even troubling themselves to expend the effort. A bandwagon that I've noticed is looking a little top-heavy in recent years. Maybe it's the major controversies in the last couple years that arrived in the form of, well, Mass Effect 3 or, I guess, Dragon Age 2 that have since shed further light on the autofallacial business model of contemporary online journalism, but the simple fact remains that many of the same voices who gleefully turned a blind eye to these issues in '09 when I and a handful of others first began shedding light on this issue, I'm not going to name names, but they rhyme with Blangry Joe and Potsy, have since boarded said bandwagon and regularly address these themes in their own programs. Look, and I'm fine with that. I don't feel I was ripped off because I'm not the only commentator addressing these issues, and I'm far from the first. But I do feel these people often fail to properly articulate and identify the true reasons behind them. And perhaps much more importantly, to be perfectly willing to name names and cite specific events, which brings us to the subject of our first rant. IGN. IGN is a living, breathing contradiction, ostensibly and in the eyes of many gamers that are often depicted as the evil empire of gaming journalism, but I think their sheer size at times also affords them some artistic license to occasionally tell half the fucking truth, because their advertising coffers are far from anemic, so they can, although they rarely do, afford to occasionally stand on principle. Look, on the one hand, they weren't shy from calling Final Fantasy XIV the putrescent turd it truly was, despite the obese advertising campaign Square Enix paid for on their site, but then they turn around and they give Ace Combat Assault Horizon one of the absolute worst arcade flight sims in existence, and far and away the worst game in the Ace Combat series, an appalling 7.5 out of 10, or they give Dragon Age 2, I think it was a nice shiny 8.5 out of 10. 8.9 out of 10 to Final Fantasy XIII, a near perfect 9 out of 10 for Star Wars The Old Republic, with an accompanying month filled with articles extolling the virtues of this thoroughly vanilla MMORPG. Oh, while coincidentally animated Old Republic banner advertisements swirl and pulsate in the margins of the fucking page. But it's the former, rather than the latter, that has become a truly ethically dubious trend in recent years. Look, now not only is the IGN webpage virtually wallpapered with advertisements in every conceivable location or configuration on the site, now it seems like editorial at IGN is now evidently instructing their reporters to drop whatever they're doing and write fucking fluff pieces about said games to serve as glorified advertisements themselves. Mass Effect 3 early last year was a particularly egregious exemplar, not least of which due to the fact that an IGN employee was actually cast as a character in the fucking game. Every day, and I counted, for a solid fucking month, prior and subsequent to the game's release, there were no fewer than 2 and no more than 4 Mass Effect 3 related stories, largely consisting of masturbatory miscellany reviewing little to no substantive information about the game, aside from that prevailing and inescapable implicit message, go out and buy this fucking game, so help me Christ! You know, and if the fluff pieces themselves failed to communicate the message, the margins of the page would circumnavigate that subliminal threshold with some aplomb. Games with comparatively meager advertising budgets, we're talking like Silent Hill Downpour, which only placed an animated banner ad on the front page of IGN for, goddamn, I think less than a week prior and subsequent to its launch, yet, which was released just 1 week after Mass Effect 3, most people forget, not only received less than 1/5 as much news coverage, but despite in many people's opinions, including mine, being a step in the right direction for the series, actually received a comically low score of 4.5 out of 10 from IGN, indeed scoring even lower than IGN's equally comical 5.5 out of 10 score afforded Duke Nukem Forever. You skeptical? Okay, this is what the IGN front page looked like in March of 2012. Yes, we screen capped it. I mean, this is what the page that contained IGN's objective review of Mass Effect 3 looked like. And it's still happening. Perk an ear and turn your gaze to IGN's thoroughly unbiased coverage of the PlayStation 4, a system without a price point and without a launch date that is nevertheless, in the eternally oblivious IGN writer Keza McDonald's own words, going to dominate the world. In the weeks leading up to the PS4 launch event, there were as many as 7 PS4 related stories on a single page, and that was before we even had a date for the event. For the third place console on the market. Conversely, it was recently revealed that Microsoft will be holding their own event. How many stories were Microsoft related? 4. Over the course of 7 fucking pages. And no bias there. When it comes to Sony, IGN has generated more spin than a ballerina with vertigo. And as I'm sure a complete coincidence, there have been a glut of animated PS4 advertisements on IGN for at least the past week. Imagine that. This is a fucking abhorrent conflict of interest. This is the new face of gaming journalism, and this is IGN in a fucking nutshell. I'm Razorfist. God fucking speed.